Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We talk today to Stephen Stewart, CEO of QC Copper and Gold, the latest copper offering on the TSXV. We talked to him about how he intends to move that project forward. And if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation and the company itself and what the future holds, you can get that at cruxinvestor.com/club. Also, you can find company reports on there, market commentary from experts from around the world, training courses, summaries of other interviews that we have done. And of course, there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. And if you go now, there's a 7-day free trial. And of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we discussed on today's conversation, take a look in the description. Stephen, how are you doing?
Doing very well, Matt. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, long time. You've been a busy boy though. How's life? How's life in Toronto?
Toronto is quiet. Quiet on the people front, but very busy on the business front. We've never been busier, here at our group. We think the time is now for gold, copper, et cetera, just the metals. So we're excited.
Right. Okay. Well, we better get into it. There's a lot of moving parts here. It's a news story, relatively small story, but there's a lot of moving parts. Why don't we kick off and talk about the OR Group first before we get into QC Copper and Gold. So what is OR Group?
Well, the OR Group is just a band of like-minded mining entrepreneurs. We cover all the bases in terms of geology, engineering, finance, marketing, compliance, CFO, legal. So we just have this team here that has been working together for a long time. We've grown lately out of necessity, but the idea has been to acquire privately mineral resource opportunities, raise capital, take it public, develop it, and then use the junior markets. We've been doing this. We've been putting together this group formally and informally for the past number of years, just waiting in anticipation of people coming back to the junior sector. And I certainly think it's here for gold. And my argument is we're here for copper soon. Okay, but the OR Group is comprised of a number of companies. I mean, what's their relationship? Is there a financial relationship? Not in a sense, really. It's more about people. The OR Group itself is not necessarily a shareholder. It's just a representation of who we are as a brand. And I think our brand is strong, but the brand represents the people. But in terms of who the OR Group represents on a public company basis, we've got Ore Finders Resources, Stango River Resources, QC Copper and Gold, obviously, Baseload Energy, and we've got a new IPO called American Eagle Gold that's coming out later this year. Okay. So it's no financial relationship. It's just a group of people, like-minded people who want to put their know-how together across these groups. So do different members of that group sit on different companies in that group? Yeah, there's certainly some crossover. I mean, I'm associated with all of them, certainly. Many of my long trusted geologists, like Charles Beaudry, is associated with me, sits on the board. So there's definitely crossover, but we definitely put people like, for example, James Sykes is squarely in charge of Baseload. Charles Beaudry on a daily basis is squarely in charge of the technical aspects of QC Copper and Gold. And what do you offer those companies? Are you helping them raise money? Are you giving them not just geological advice on the corporate structuring and so forth? I mean, I just want to understand how real it is if it's just an idea. Well, it's not an idea. It's very real. I mean, I'm involved. I'm also involved directly in each of these companies in different capacities. I'm generally speaking, the lead guy on the corporate side. So my expertise would certainly be in raising money, my network, identifying assets, making sure things are moving forward, just sort of coordinating the team and promotion, talking to people like yourself, spreading the word. Okay. Those are my primary functions. Okay. Is there any move to, OR Group sounds like you, okay? That's what it sounds like at the moment. Is there any move to, formalizing that in a bit more of a structured way going forward? Or do each of these companies want to control their own destiny? No, I don't see the need to formalize anything beyond what it is. We're quite comfortable operating the companies individually as they are. It works quite well. So that's it. Okay. Well, thanks for that on the OR Group. I just wanted to understand, that bit of it, because sometimes sure. They're a bit more structured than that, and they provide other types of services, legal, corporate, and others. But that's fine. You're a gold guy. You're now moving into copper. So give us your copper thesis. Well, I've been into copper for a long time. So, to clarify, the QC Copper just renamed itself or rebranded it. Nothing fundamentally changed except us refocusing the message, because I believe the message has been lost. But to talk about the macro, really we were talking, I'm a gold guy because I believe that there's a problem with the financial system, et cetera. And I think the solution out of this, what I call the debt quagmire, is building infrastructure, hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, tunnels, ports, airports, et cetera. Certainly in North America, the Americas is crumbling. And so I think the new China is going to be the West in terms of building its infrastructure. So I really believe, and whether we call that a New Deal Part 2, to get us out of this thing, I think copper is going to be a major part of that story. And then, of course, we've got the electrification story, which I'm a big believer in as well. And that's, has to do with electric cars, but also renewable energies. And copper just connects that. So I think the demand side for copper is very bright. And I think there's a serious supply issue with copper as well with, obviously Chile is a major producer, but all these old ladies, as Mr. Friedman would call them, are 70 years old. Their grades have this degradation. They've come down half of the grades what they were 10 years ago. So there's a problem there. And then when you find these new deposits, there's some fantastic new deposits out there, but they're in very troubled jurisdictions. So we, obviously we mitigate that by being in Quebec with respect to QC Copper. But so I think there's serious supply demand fundamental issues with copper. And that's why we took this bet. We took the bet 2 years ago when we first acquired the Opemiska Copper Mine Complex. Everybody was bullish at the time, but copper's been frustrated by the trade wars which preceded COVID between Trump and Xi, and then we had COVID, and in March copper dropped to $2, and nobody knew it was happening. But since then, copper has probably outperformed virtually any metal out there. It's gone from $2 to $3. The big companies, the producers like Freeport, have benefited from that margin, but companies like us, the exploration companies who don't directly benefit from that extra dollar, they've sort of lagged. And as I've said before, I think this exact same setup with the copper juniors was the same setup that was with ore finders and Mustango, the gold companies, like last year when gold started to run in the summer of 2019. Our gold companies were dead as a doornail until about 9 months later. And so I think this copper setup is the exact same thing. We've had the metal run, the big guys have run because they get the cash flow, but the companies like QC Copper are just sitting there and we're waiting for that copper wave to come.
Okay, I happen to agree with you about copper and nickel for next year and potash for next year, okay? I do happen to agree with the thesis. What I, as an investor, need to believe about you is that you're the guy to lead the charge. Okay, so we've established that Ore Group is effectively you. You're across a number of companies. You're across Mustango, 24 million market cap, Baseload, 34 million market cap, Ore Finders, 34 million market cap, and QC around 7-8 million market cap. Okay, have you got the time to run these companies or spend your time on these companies?
Well, first of all, let me just point of clarification. The Ore Group is not just me. The Ore Group is led by me. I have, a full complement of team behind me: lawyers, legals, finance, and geologists. And so, I could not possibly do all that myself. I'm just perhaps the one out front. I'm the front of the house. But believe me, there's a whole suite of people, in the kitchen, so to speak. And so, that's a very important part. So, where do we go from here? We've built up the team substantially. I should say Charles Baudry, who is the key technical guy. So he has this relationship or experience in the Opemiska for the past 10 years. He's been evaluating the project that we since acquired 2 years ago. He had a thesis about how this project, which used to be a high-grade vein system, that was over 1.4 billion pounds of copper was taken out of. But we looked at the data that was Falconbridge data. It was high quality. We recreated or we digitized it. We saw very clearly that there was mineralization outside of these veins. Okay, and so it was disseminated type deposit. And then we acquired it. We raised a little bit of money, and we went out there in 2019 and we proved that. I mean, we saw the data. But we went out and checked it for ourselves. We drilled 13 holes of over 100 meters that had ore grade copper. Some highlights would be 160 meters at 1% copper. This copper equivalent with gold included in that, because there's a lot of gold in here. And the headline hole to me was 74 meters at over 2.5% copper equivalent. And these are shallow. And these are not only they're shallow holes, they are on the railroad. The railroad's stone's throw away, quite literally, highway, power, all these infrastructure items are there. So in terms of what boxes this project checks, first of all, the geology is there. We've got to drill it out and prove how big it is. Okay, that's the next step. But once we do that, the infrastructure's there, and not having to deal with billion-dollar line items just puts this project, way ahead of the curve.
Okay, you've inherited a lot. There's a lot around you. You've got some historic drill data which suggests that this, clearly it has produced a lot in the past, but you know a lot walking into this. But so why weren't people paying attention before? Why do you have to go for the rename to get people to start paying attention again?
Well, so the company PowerOre, which, effective September, what it was known as, it was actually, when it went public in 2018, it was on the back of another project operating in another jurisdiction. So since then, we completely changed the focus of the company, jurisdictionally wise, QC, that's what Quebec stands for, and we've shifted towards copper and gold. So, it just needed to be repositioned. I thought that the story had gone overlooked. I don't think that the name itself was the reason. I think it's part of the story, certainly, but I think it's about us communicating and getting out there, letting people know who we are, what the project is, what we've done, and what we're going to do.
Okay.
And, I suppose the name was just an excuse to get out there and refresh everybody. And I think it's going to be successful.
Okay. Sometimes it's covering up a lot of sins, but we've got to wait and see what you come up with, right? So QC Copper and Gold, you're hedging your bets. Good year for copper next year, maybe, and gold's in a positive environment. Do you think that this resource has still got what it takes to be able to deliver a mine, an economic mine?
Well, obviously, time will tell on that, a forward-looking statement, but it would appear that it does. When you drill 160 meters at a percent by the rail, that's a good start. But we know there's an awful lot there. We've modeled all the Falconbridge data. We know there's reserves from Falconbridge at depth. So we know there's many millions of tons there. There are historic reports which we don't treat as 43-101, which suggests that there are tens of millions of tons of resource there. So that's the start. We know in effect how small it is. We just don't know how big it is because we need to drill it out in its entirety. And we have to do so in the context of it being disseminated, which is a completely different thesis for this project.
Okay. We've spoken a few times. We've always had great conversations. You're a straight talking guy, not in doubt. But if I look at some of the things that we talked about Mustango. You walked into a sort of complicated scenario, took a while to untangle and resolve itself, but it's still at 34 million market cap, right? You've got Baseload, I know you're in, and James Sykes, I know at the helm. I rate him as a geologist, good guy, but 34 million market cap. You've got Ore Finders, again, around 30 million market cap. These are small companies. You've got gold companies which have not taken advantage, have not been able to take advantage of this positive gold environment we've been in for a year, right? Uranium, I kind of give an excuse. I think they've got another 12 months and that could be something quite exciting there. But you've got yet another company here, 7 million market cap. How do you say to the market, look, I'm really good at not just fixing messes, but building companies? Have you hired the right people to head up these companies? Because so far we're not seeing any real growth in this positive bull environment for gold. So why should people believe that you're going to be able to do something different here with copper?
Well, I think that, first of all, let me point a few more point of clarification. So Mustango is, let's just call it a $30 million market cap company. When we took it over, it's $1 million. It's 30 times our money. So, that's as good as growth as you're going to see anywhere. Ore Finders, I just watched a video of myself, not that I'd make a habit of that, but I did a presentation a year ago, and I was talking about how Ore Finders was a $4 million market cap. Yesterday, Ore Finders, $40 million market cap. So, I think those are the two examples of 10 times your money and 30 times your money. Not too bad. So I think we have taken advantage of it. And both those companies, mind you, on the last few months have raised, they have between them $15 million in cash, over $26 million in working capital between them. And they are going to be drilling going forward, for the next 12 months. We don't plan on stopping drilling. So that's what those two companies are focused on. They had issues, they solved them. They raised a ton of money in this environment, and now we're just drilling because we're looking for discovery. That's what those two companies are all about. Now, Power Ore, or I should excuse me, QC Copper is the exact same situation, except that it's 12 months behind in a sense because the wave for copper hasn't come. So we play the cycles. We don't push on strings. 6 months ago, 12 months ago, nobody was caring about copper. I'm arguing that argument is going to change real soon. So I suggest that if your listeners are looking for companies that have not run, that are backed by quality teams, that have quality assets, market cap sub 10 million bucks, and I'll note that our working capital in that company is 1.5 times its market cap because of our position in baseload. Now that's got volatility in it. It's not necessarily fully liquid, but it's a strong company, strong balance sheet, strong asset, strong team. And we're just going to go out there and tell our story, I think, in a very positive copper market. So keep your eye on this.
Okay, so 7 million market cap, 8 million market cap. You raised some money in August, just under $1 million. What next?
We got $1.5 million in the bank, plus the 62% of base load, which is 11, 12 million bucks, whatever that is. What's the plan? Really, it's about a drill program. We've got a 20,000 meter drill program planned within QC Copper. Obviously, our cash is not sufficient to execute upon that plan. There's currently right now there's a COVID situation that's flared up in Quebec, and that sort of prohibited us from moving any drilling forward earlier in the year because Quebec is particularly cautious. So we don't really know when we can go back out there in the field, but when we are able to call it on a health and safety basis, we know exactly what we're going to do. We will be looking to increase our cash treasury because I probably need between $3.5 to $4 million totally complete our our economics and our engineering on this project. So we got to drill out the Springer. We got about 13,000 meters there, which we suspect will give us our in-pit resource plus our PEA. And then we got to do the exact same thing for the Perry, which was a second mine right next door that we haven't even poked a hole in. We have the data, so it's the same story, the Springer as is the Perry. And so we have the potential to grow even more beyond that. And then earlier in the year, we acquired the Robitaille, which was the third mine of the Opemiska operating under Falconbridge. And the fourth mine is called the Cook. And the Cook is a gold mine. And the Cook produced 300,000 ounces at 5 grams per ton, and it's right there. So we've got these 4 mines that are very proximate to each other. And then additionally, we acquired 13,000 hectares worth of land on the Gwillim Fault, which is the regional mineralization controlling structure there, which gives us upside. We're in the Chibougamau camp of Quebec. It's certainly in Eastern Canada. It's the most interesting copper gold camp there. So we've got a clear plan to delineate an open pit deposit on these 4 mines, and then we've got the optionality for discovery on this land package on the fault. So I think we've got a very clear plan. It's just a function of cost of capital, which I'm very, very cautious about. And but we'll be moving the project forward, certainly telling a story, and then moving it forward technically when we can.
Okay. I want to come back to I mean, I know you did say it's not necessarily very liquid, but you've got 63% of baseload, right? Is that a serious consideration to sell shares from that to finance QC, copper and gold?
Well, of course, we're not just holding on to it because we like the look of the paper. It's the question of when. So I would say right now I'm being patient. Am I liquidating it right now? No, I'm not. I don't view it as cash. When there's sort of and I wear 2 hats. I mean, I'm obviously associated with baseload, and I'm not going to sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. I think it's early days in the story of baseload. I mean, think about the optionality. James is a very reputable guy. He's solid. He's got great ideas. If he is successful, in proving his thesis, because he's got his own thesis in the Athabasca, not too dissimilar to the thesis we have on our Opemiska. If he's right, that 62% is game changing for QC Copper and Gold. Okay, so could we liquidate it and put money in our treasury now? Maybe, but as I said, it's not all that liquid. But if we are right, then QC is a totally different scenario. So it's a bit of optionality. And I will note that to get that 62%, we sold an asset called the Man Mine. It's a quality asset, which is now 100% owned by Baseload, but we sold it at about $1 million valuation. We've turned it into $10 million in paper. So, I mean, we took nothing and turned it into something in a sense, because QC wasn't focused on that project at all.
I'm just wondering how nervous I should be if I'm a Baseload shareholder that you're going to suddenly dump lot of stock into the marketplace? Because it probably does need a little bit of liquidity. You know, one shareholder and 62%.
We talking short term? Absolutely not. Like,
okay.
I'm going to let baseload's 4 or 5 months old. We're going to let it get its legs. Absolutely. Like, I'm a significant shareholder in baseload, so I wear two hats. I am, all else equal, I'm a buyer, not a seller, and in both companies.
Okay, thank you. I think that really helps, because I appreciate the balance, the arbitrage between releasing opportunity here with your newest project, and I guess also to extent increasing the amount of shares trading in the market for baseload. But you've got to make that call, but not to the damage or detriment of one party, I suspect. So let's come back to this project. You've outlined sort of some of the things that you need to do with this addition of $3.5-4 million bucks. You're not going to rush into the market. What do you see happening anytime soon in the market for copper? Because copper's had a bit of a run. We're kind of it's sitting where it is today. I think the outlook for next year is good. But the cost of this money with your current market cap is expensive if you're just raising pure equity. What have you got? What options do you have?
Patience, time, waiting for the wave. Sometimes that's the best move. I don't like to force things. I would be surprised if the rush of interest in copper juniors comes between now and the end of this year. There's just too much noise going on in the world right now for that to happen. I think gold has a lot of legs, and it's going to continue to run. I don't think it's going to stop running, but I think they call it the euphoria in gold is going to sort of temper a little bit, and then people are going to look for the next thing. Once they come out with, call it the plan to solve this, I think there are going to be, call it new deals being announced, especially, I wouldn't be surprised if, prior to November 4th, there's some sort of infrastructure built. There's these plans, these infrastructure plans that define demand, great demand for copper, are ultimately going to be, I think, the catalyst which really moves copper even further. If copper goes to 350, that's really going to pump up the juniors up. So to me, it's really a 2021 story. As you mentioned, we raised $1 million a couple months ago. That $1 million wasn't necessarily for work in terms of drill work. Okay, so no, maybe we will, but maybe we won't. What it really was about strengthening our balance sheet to provide us patience, because that is the absolute most important thing when you're running a junior.
Okay, the other thing about copper is typically these copper projects tend to be quite large. I don't know whether you fit into that bracket, and I don't know therefore if you're going to be of much interest to a major wanting to come in and fund this thing for $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion bucks, like these copper projects tend to cost. You're a smaller play than that. So how does a company in your position navigate the copper market? How do you insert yourself into the next cycle? How do you get finance, given that it's probably not going to deliver the kind of scale which attracts some of the majors?
No, you're right. This is not a porphyry system, so this is not going to be a 1 billion ton, SolGold type of deposit. But nor is it going to come with that sort of capex. Okay, and so there's trade-offs. So this is going to be attractive to a mid-tier. Okay, not to a BHP or a Rio. Now, not that I want to discount that. I mean, that always could be possible. In fact, the camp, I think. Okay, if we want to talk about bigger scale, we are in the Chibougamau camp. We've got 3 or 4 companies that all have really good quality assets that should be consolidated under one roof. That would be the job of I still probably think it would be like a mid-tier operator and not those super megas. But you know what? I can't control what they do. All we can do is continue to delineate our project, which is sizable. Okay, and so again, I don't like talking about tons, but I mean, it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to sort of aim for 100 million tons. And if we do that, and we do that with the ability not to have to build a rail or a road or anything like that, we're in a fantastic situation. All we need to do is dig a hole and build a mill. Now, I don't mean to brush over the complexities of doing that, but we are not in the Arctic. We're not in the Rockies. We're on the road. So you can, in theory, get away with a lesser project given those circumstances. Not that a lesser project is our goal.
Okay. Well, thanks for introducing the story to us. I look forward to seeing if you can make this 5 or 10 times as well over the next 12 months. Easy, right?
I'm betting. I put my money where my mouth is. I've had zero free shares in this company or any company that I'm associated with. I own just under 4 million shares. I just checked before I had this call with you, and which is about 5% of the company, cash paid. And I bought about $1 million in the last 4 months. So I believe in it for what it's worth.
I know you do. Stephen, thank you very much. Like what you're doing. Best of luck with this one. Stay in touch. Let us know how you're getting on. Pick up the phone, okay?
Will do. Thanks, Matt. Cheers.